a printer for like less than $100, but it's always the ink that costs the most money. So
Right.
like the actual printer universe, what they call the hardware is the loss leader. The razor blade, the razor is always cheap, but the razors themselves are so astronomically expensive because that's the recurring revenue of the software. So the loss leader is always the hardware. And I worked for Sony PlayStation for 12 years, and we totally understood that. The sale of the PlayStation as well as the Xbox, the old consoles, we might have sold it for like $300 or something like that, but those were loss leaders because they cost so much to make because we were going to make up all the money on the software that we so the same business principles applied here. You got a product, you've got to have some way to just like invigorate the sales, so you sort of reward your launch group, with a discount. So even though they might buy it at full price, by offering them a voucher for discount, you're taking that $10,000 that would have gone to a marketing effort, but this is your marketing effort. This is literally, do I pay $10,000 to someone to be my social media manager, Or it goes, do we take 10,000 and says, you know what, how many sales can we get out of this? This is going to represent 300 sales or 300 downloads or whatever it might be, or 500 or, whatever the number you figure out, and then work the system that way. So all these people are individuals. They have to have their individual account. They have to have their own personal iTunes account and Amazon account, but they are part of this group. They know what they're supposed to do. They do the pre-sales and they leave the review, and because reviews are also important too. That's part of the way to trigger the system. And you're just trying to get it so that it has like the first week, 2 weeks impression within in these platform systems, so that when later down the line, when another film comes out, like A Quiet Place 2 or something comes out, they might see it like other viewers have watched Mom, you start pairing together. If you look at, like, it's interesting, when I look at Netflix, some of their early films, some of their early like basic found footage horror films, some films are just always stuck there as other viewers have seen this, because somehow when that programming algorithm comes up and they're pairing films with each other, it gets sort of stuck in the evergreen ecosystem. So those who were beneficial, that were there early on the platform of Netflix, still benefit from it. Now it's changing. And again, all these platforms can change the way they do their search system. But for right now, that's what we're seeing. So, it's like a small window of where there's initial product launch push, and then there might be like, it might exist and still make a few bucks, over the next 3, 4, or 5 years, and then something could happen where one of your stars is in something really big, and all of a sudden, the search system will look for that actor and says, this actor's also been in this movie. So it's all that kind of stuff is like looking at the long tail, the long game for of what the life of your movie. So that's how you can do it. Like I said, you've been given so much advice, and everybody seems to be hell bent on knowing what this. I'm just saying this is a option, and things that I've seen on the really small scale in terms of independent artists of all sorts. I said authors, musicians, and filmmakers use this approach, and dissecting the systems of how these platforms work. That is a possibility as a strategy that may work in favor for this particular project. Now we can talk about some other stuff too, but what are
Well,
your thoughts on that?
I am just curious. Do you know if it is uncommon for producers to be calling other filmmakers and saying, "Hey, did this distribution company work for you? Would you use them again? Would you recommend them?"
I had no problem. In terms of, I only called like a handful of people, and I just found them like on Facebook. I found them through IMDb because I had another filmmaker reach out to me and say, "Do you know anything about this producer or this company? They are offering this for my film." I said, "Well, let me just check." So I just as a favor for one of the listeners, never was aired. It was just on on email. I just reached out to somebody who had that I could figure out had worked with this person or worked with this company, and just sent a straight Facebook message chat, just introducing myself and just saying, totally understand if you don't want to divulge any information, but I just wanted to verify, like, is this person who they say they are, and the company they work for, did they do this because I have another filmmaker is interested in or is being approached by this person. And they were like, oh yeah, so they gave me the rundown. It's like, it gave me the clarity, and then I just gave that information over to the other filmmaker and let them decide what they wanted to do. Like I said, the worst case scenario is somebody. I think what it is like there shouldn't be any fear that you're crossing some like unwritten law or because they're just people. Like if somebody is going to say like, yeah, I don't want to say anything. All I can say, you could tell if somebody goes like, I don't want to say anything bad. All I can say is like they did this, and you can read between the lines. Like they're still holding up their end of the bargain of being the Hollywood like ecosystem of not throwing anybody on their bus, but you can kind of tell. But at the same time, if they had a great relationship, they would be more than happy. Like, oh my God, it's the best. Do it. I have no idea the motivation and why they say that. It doesn't ring true. It doesn't ring right that a company would be that way, because your question was so logical. Like, oh, this is cool. You have this company. You've been doing this for all. Is there any way I can chance to talk to some of your clients or just see how their experience was with you guys? It totally makes sense to everybody else in the real world. I don't know why it wouldn't make sense in the Hollywood world,
Yeah, that was my thoughts on it too. And we have back to like the sales company angle. We had one sales company who said, we want to acquire the film, internationally as well. There is this marketing fee of $35,000. I think it was 40, and they knocked it down to 35. That they recoup afterwards, and that's a big chunk of change for a smaller low budget film. And then this other sales company said, we don't charge that marketing fee because we don't go to festivals, and by the way, we want to represent the film domestically, not internationally. So in a case like that, like let's say we end up going with the sales company who has great relationships with Netflix and wants to represent it domestically. Do we then have to find an international sales agent to represent it internationally?
Yes.
To sell those territories? Yeah. So we'd have to have two sales agents.
Right.
I guess, is that common, and does that dupe costs for us?
Yes. It's common to have split rights in terms of one company handling domestic, another handling international. And yes, you do have to pay the other fees too. The way they structure it again is like you won't pay anything up front, but they will take it out of any profits because they have to recoup their marketing and travel expenses. So that sales agent going to all the different film markets internationally, overseas, they got to get those expenses have to be paid somehow. So every time they sell a bundle of film product, again, your film it'll hardly ever be just one film being sold. It's always bundled.
With sales company?
Yeah, and all distribution companies. Here's some other stories about distribution companies for people to get a gauge on. I had another filmmaker come in, and he was mentioning like he stumbled upon like this one distribution company because he was some funny story, but he was explaining like they had this huge board. It was like 300 to 500 titles they had all lined up. So distribution companies are focusing on that many titles, and they have an army of like 10 people that's working 300, 500 titles. So if you go to some of these film, like the American film market has it, you can sign up. I get these emails from the film catalog, and they just show you, different distribution companies and what films they're trying to sell that quarter. And then you can go to their website and you can see all the films they've ever sold or they still have licensing rights for, 5 years, 7 years. And you see it. It's like, okay, that's quite a bit of films, 100 films, 200 films, 500 films. And you think to yourself, where do you fit? If you get, part of that catalog, where do you fit into the whole catalog? Are you getting like the personal, touch? The reality is that they're grabbing like by genre and going, all right, I've got 10 like horror / thriller films. We can sell it to this territory or this buyer for a discounted rate. All 10 films, they're going to give us 10,000 for, and they'll split it up from there. And so of the 10,000, it cost me 5,000 to market and travel. So everybody's going to get like, a little less than like $500, from that, or whatever it might be. So and then that might be it. And they're off on the next bundle. So, and then I had another filmmaker had approached me with another company. The way they were running their business, another distribution company, was very interesting. They said, they're offering me to sign up my film for 5 years, and they're put up on all the digital platforms. It was initial fee, basically paying the aggregation fee up front that the filmmaker had to do, but then this company would only take 50%, so it's 50-50. So it's like right off the bat, there's no other marketing expenses. And I did the numbers. I said, that's really interesting. I go, they have an interesting business model because, say collectively, a film. Or one film on one of the digital platforms only makes like $5,000 or $10,000. That's in the life of the film. The one film only makes $5,000 to $10,000. That's it on a digital platform. Because of the contract you would have signed, that distribution company would have got the 50% of that. So the difference is, I said, well, if you did the numbers, like you and I could start a distribution company right now and offer that and say, hey, filmmakers, come up and sign with us. We're going to get you on those digital platforms. And all we do is have a relationship with these aggregators that we just take the upfront fee from the filmmakers to pay for their film to be using Bitmax or Distributor to get onto these platforms. But the difference is the contract that we signed, that we created, means that we're going to get 50% of the profit from these films. And so if one film, say, makes, $5,000, our cut of it is half. That means the filmmaker only gets $2,500. And that's all they ever see for their film, the life of the film. But we, as a distribution company, our business model is built on volume. Say every film averages about $2,500 that we make. And say we multiply that by, we have, 500 films in our library. We would profit $1.25 million, Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we didn't do anything. We had no risk because we never made the film. We were no debt because we weren't the ones who had to bleed and sweat and get everything. We just took it at the tail end of it and convinced these filmmakers that we have a library work. We have relationships with these aggregators. We can get you on the platforms. What you see on the platforms, it exists. On average, we figure out some like turnkey system a little bit that allows us to make about $2,500 per film, And then, we sit back and like our company's racking in like, $2 million a year. You're
robbing us. We're robbing people.
Yes. Yeah. But I had explained this to this filmmaker. Says, let's think about this. Let's think about how easy it would be for you and I to like to start a distribution company. And so now it's interesting to see these other companies come into play, where it's just like, it's kind of like a talent agency. There's for actors, we're always told like you never pay to be part of a talent agency, and there's always these companies that come up and they pop up all over the country. These scamming companies that say, oh, come on, you have to pay a fee to be part of our talent agency, and then you have to get new headshots or whatever, that kind of stuff, and you have to use our photographer, and that fee includes this. And the thing is, it's like, you're never supposed to ever pay. Like, a talent agency is signing you on for free because they want you to get out there and do your work to try to get them business. So that's why it's fascinating to see on the filmmaking side of things. This is almost like the same beast. It's like almost the same sort of pyramid scheme that existed long before. Now it's happening because we've seen it in the acting world, and now it's seeing in the filmmaking, the independent filmmaking world. I thought, to me, that's what it kind of rang true to me that way. But
right. Well, let me ask you this: if these distribution companies or even the sales companies are saying there's a fee, whether it's upfront or it's deferred, and they're saying, well, we need this for marketing. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Meaning, what are they doing to market the film? They're not putting up a billboard on Sunset. You know what I mean? So where are those funds going to? What does, oh, it's for marketing mean?